What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for June 8th, 2023. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery, and I'm sure at some point in the history of this podcast, we will be talking about yesterday on a future episode. No Phillies game due to the smoke from the wildfires up in Canada. It's pretty bad out there. I had to go into the city to the vet to get a refill for my dog's medicine. And even with the air conditioner on, like the inside of my truck just smelled like smoke. It was pretty crazy. So for the first time that I can remember, I'm sure it's probably happened once or twice, but there is no games to recap, no real stories or anything to talk about. Obviously, with the Phillies, there's no news due to the postponement. They're going to try to play it tonight. I don't know how that's going to work out. If it's even, I guess it's supposed to be a little bit better today. No news for the Eagles, which is probably a good thing for them. With the Flyers, there's a lot of smoke, no pun intended, about the trade of Carter Hart. So I think we may be getting an update on that soon. Danny Briere is hard at work. I guess with the Sixers, everything was talking about Harden and basically how now everybody's going back and forth on what the best option for him and the Sixers are. But I usually don't do this, but since there's no real games to recap, I did hear that WIP is putting the process on trial today, the people versus the process, and basically trying to see was it worth it. I've gone on record before saying yes. You can go back in some of my other podcasts, Back to the Future. I believe it was episode number 32 from the beginning of March. We talked about it kind of when we thought that this team was dead in the water. But just a quick little, my feeling on the process is, yes, it was a success. Did it, as of this point, achieve the ultimate goal of a championship? No. So if you're basically giving it a pass-fail grade in that respect, then yeah, it was not successful. But you got to think back, and I've talked a lot about this on both of these podcasts. Prior to 2013, when Sam Hinkie kind of came in and blew it up, this team was in purgatory. They were 8 seed at best, or like 10, 11, 12, like basically just out of the playoffs and not getting a good draft pick. So if you think about that, your team, they were not that fun to watch. It was a boring team, and it was just, there's no buzz about them. So you needed to do something drastic to even gain interest. And I think what a lot of people forget was the process originally was to bring the team back to relevancy with some young players, so it would be an attractive stop for free agents. I mean, the free agents we were getting at the time were like mid-tier at best, and you're not going to be able to turn it around unless you do something drastic and blow it up like Sam Hinkie did. I mean, I would even have said they should have started the process a year earlier, because if you look back at those drafts, starting with 2013, his first one, but let's go back to the 2012 draft, and if the Sixers had blown it up that year, you had guys like Anthony Davis, Bradley Beal, Damian Lillard, Andre Drummond, like all within the top 10 that they could have chosen that would have been better than Mo Harkless at 15. And then I will say, everybody said, oh, Sam Hinkie didn't know how to choose talent or anything. If you look at who they picked and when they picked them in those drafts, I mean, it would have been a reach, and people would have skewered him if he would have went the next year if Giannis went at 15. And then the Sixers had, what was it, the 11th pick. So it wouldn't have been that much of a reach, but Michael Carter-Williams was the pick. They ended up getting Nerlens Noel from New Orleans. So like the guys he was taking were the right guys. What I give Sam Hinkie credit for is he actually realized that these guys were not going to pan out and moved on from them rather quickly. And not one of those guys is a game-changing player. Is Nerlens Noel a star on a team? Is Michael Carter-Williams? No. They're good pieces. The next year, he took Embiid, which I think the way the lottery fell out, that was a good thing, because Andrew Wiggins and Jabari Parker were the two guys that year. And the fact that the Sixers picked third, I think, helped them. And if you remember, we all wanted Dante Exum as point guard back then. So I'd say he made a good pick there. The next year in 2015, he took Jahlil Okafor at 3. And I mean, the only thing I would have said, maybe like a lot of people were saying about Porzingis is being the pick there. But I mean, what are both of those guys doing right now? The next year, it was Ben Simmons. Everybody, say what you want about him now. At the time, he was the guy to pick there. And then in 17 was when they got rid of him and Colangelo came in and the shady trade with Boston and everything like that. So none of the guys that Sam Hinkie picked were the guys to pick at the time. And you don't see those guys lighting up stat sheets and making all-star games and all-NBA teams right now. What you do see is the Sixers are fun to watch. They're frustrating as hell, but they are fun to watch. They are relevant. People want to come here and play with Joel Embiid. Whether or not Harden comes back, I think is going to be a pivotal moment here. But I think from a standpoint of the Sixers are fun, the Sixers are relevant, the process was a success. If you're giving it a pass and fail grade, then yeah, no, it was not successful. But as an educator, you grade on a scale, and I think far more positive of the process than negative. So there's that. And I spent way more time on that than I wanted to. But let's go to the Phillies today. And we're going to go back now to 1989. On this date, June 8th, 1989, the Phillies and Pirates were two teams heading in opposite directions. The Pirates ended up in 5th place that year, the Phillies in 6th. However, earlier that year, Mike Schmidt retired for the Phillies, and they were on their way to 67 wins. The Pirates were still relatively young, managed by Jim Leland. They were one season away from going on a run where they would have 3 straight division titles. And on this day, the Pirates jumped out to an early 10-0 lead on the Phils in the top of the first, which led Pirates broadcaster Jim Rooker to say, "If we lose this game, I will walk home." So, obviously, I don't have to tell you which way this one went. When the dust settled, Von Hayes hit 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. Steve Jeltz had 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. John Kruk went 4 for 5 with 2 doubles. Phillies win 15-11. I will say Rooker did make good on his promise. In that offseason, he led a 13-day charity walk from Philly to Pittsburgh, raised almost $100,000. But the lesson here is be careful what you say because somebody's always listening. But on this day, the Phillies overcame a 10-0 first inning deficit from the Pirates to win 15-11, where Jim Rooker famously said, "If we lose this game, I'll walk home." He didn't walk home after that series, but he did make good on the promise and walk from Philly to Pittsburgh. All right, continuing with rivalry month, we are going to stick with the Pirates. And this is an oldie but goodie rivalry. They started playing each other back in 1887 when the Phillies were the Quakers and the Pirates were the Alleghenies. Early on, they were never good at the same time. So much like the Mets there for a while, it was sort of like a quiet rivalry. But in the 70s, this thing got red hot. And from 1970 to 1980, of those 11 years, the Pirates or the Phillies won 10 of the 11 NL East titles. The lone exception was the Mets in 1973. Even bigger, if you go from 1969 to 1993, when they split the league up into divisions until the wild card, 15 of those 25 NL East championships were won by either the Pirates or the Phillies. They didn't do so hot in the NLCS when they got there, especially in the 70s. A lot of times they ran into the big red machine, but the Dodgers. Phillies went 1-3, Pirates 2-4. But when they did get to the NLCS in the 70s and 80s during that 70 to 80 stretch, they got to the World Series. So we had that. The rivalry has since cooled off since the realignment, and the Pirates are back in the NL Central. But overall, the Pirates lead the series 1,223, 1,079, and there are 8 ties. But the tail of the tape, Pittsburgh, 3 wild cards, 9 division, 9 pennants, 5 titles. The Phillies, 1 wild card, 11 divisions, 8 pennants, 2 titles. Have to give the edge slightly to Pittsburgh. due to the title. Phillies have won more divisions. But when they were head-to-head, this was the rivalry to beat. If you want to throw in mascots, I mean, the Philly Fanatic is the GOAT, but the Pirate Parrot is not too shabby himself. So if I have to score this game, or this rivalry, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. And basically from that, most of this is from that 69 to 93 span, but it's cooled off recently. But there's always a natural rivalry between Philly and Pittsburgh, whether it's the Steelers, Eagles, Pirates, Phillies, and Penguins, Flyers, as we talked yesterday. This is one of those rivalries that stands the test of time just because of the proximity. And this one in particular, growing up, I mean, I liked the Pirates as sort of a second team because the Phillies were so bad when I was a kid. And obviously by the time I was really starting to follow, the Phillies were just dreadful and the Pirates were good with Bonds, Bonilla, and those guys. I know my father-in-law, George, is going to love this. He huge Pirates guy, loved them, still loves them. I think if he had his choice, he would choose for them to win a championship over any of the other Pittsburgh teams. But again, my favorite part of this rivalry was when Mike Schmidt hit his 500th home run at Three Rivers Stadium. The call from Harry Kalas was great, but that is our rivalry for today. Is the Pirates on this day back on June 8th June 8th, 1989. The Phillies overcame that deficit where Jim Rooker said, "I'm going to walk home if we blow this lead," and he did. One thing you don't have to walk home for is it's almost Father's Day. PhillyGoat.com has you covered when it comes to your Philly sports-based apparel. They have some of those old-school Phillies jerseys from the early days of this rivalry with the Pirates. Be sure to check them out. Again, we mentioned it's Pride Month. They have the Philly Pride shirts. Like I said, if you want the Sixers stuff, they have the AI Ear Cup, Mr. Sandman's Gym. Anything you can do or anything you can dream of, they have. I told you the dad joke one, the 80 Phillies with the picture of the Phillies on it. I think I'm going to buy that one just on principle. But when you go there, use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. That's PhillyGoat.com for 10%. Promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. Hopefully we'll have a Phillies game to update tomorrow. Be safe out there. It is rough. Like between allergies and now the smoke, I'm all jacked up. But be safe out there. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Thursday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.